Well, we're one day late, but here we are. Ask Mike following the firing of Sam Pittman. Mike, Monday, a very, very busy day, and unimaginable that here we are. We got Bobby Petrino in control of the program once again. How'd we get here?
He's had 6 jobs since then, if you count the interim job here at A&M. 6 jobs since he left here. And he told friends when he left here that he was somehow going to get back here someday and make it up for what he'd done because he blamed it on himself. He even went in front of the Little Rock Touchdown Club a few years ago and said he wished there would be some way he could do that. Mm-hmm. Well, now he's got his chance. But, I mean, he's got a monumental task in front of him.
Also, I believe, looking at some of the numbers, over a 700 winning percentage as a head coach when he left Arkansas. Since leaving Arkansas as a head coach, right around 500. So
right.
A little bit of a different guy, but hey, maybe he can get the thing back on track. All right, diving right into it here on this week's Ask Mike. First question coming from HogFan77, who asks, just how will Coach Petrino fix the defense in 2 weeks? Mike, I don't know if there's anybody left to coach these guys right now.
Well, that is a good question, and I have no idea for sure, but I know what they're going to try to do. And the first thing they did was fire 3 coaches: Travis Williams, who was the defensive coordinator, co-defensive coordinator Marcus Woodson, who coached safeties, and the D-line coach Deke Adams. All of those guys are fired. Now they promoted Chris Wilson, who was under Deke Adams. And he'd actually coached D-line in the NFL, in a Super Bowl champion team.
Chris Wilson, the assistant defensive line coach,
right.
prior to this.
So the guy they're putting in charge of the defense, and I had somebody tell me a couple of weeks ago, they said, look, the biggest hire you should have on your defense is your D-line coach. That's the most important thing. So apparently Petrino decided that, and that's the big replacement. Now, the coach they brought in to take over the safeties, Che Hendricks, this is his first year to work at this level as an assistant to an assistant. And before that, he was a head coach in Texas. He had a record of 71 and 19, so it's pretty good. But he had
one more thing on this. His son, Hank Hendricks, junior
right.
at Fayetteville High School, apparently currently a top 10 junior quarterback in the country.
So there's the tie-in on that. What they didn't talk about was there's no replacement for Travis Williams as linebacker coach. They didn't name a linebackers coach. Numerically, because Pittman is now gone, they can bring in a coach from the outside and add to the staff to replace him. And there's speculation that that's what Petrino is going to do. He's going to use somebody that either played for him at one time or coached with him at one time and bring him in to coach the linebackers. And so that's what they will do from a coaching standpoint. Now, what he talked about was we're going to de-emphasize the scheming part of it and go simple, come up with a new base defense. And what we're interested in is getting off the line of scrimmage as fast as you can if you're up front. If you're linebackers, move as quickly as you can, identify the ball, go to the ball as quickly as you can, make tackles, shed blocks, and make tackles. What he didn't address, and I wish he had, was what they're going to do with their pass coverage. Because again, people keep telling me over and over again, you got to go to press coverage. Because when you back off 6-8 yards and you give those other teams' receivers that much time to maneuver, then you come up to them and all of a sudden you're all turned around and they're behind you.
To play man coverage, you got to generate a pass rush. They haven't really been able to do that. And I don't know if they have the speed and the talent on the outside to really be a man defense.
So that could be an issue. Even when they tried to simplify at halftime of the Notre Dame game and came out and for a time looked better stopping the run, the pass, all they had to do was start throwing the ball, and then it was a problem again. So he's got his work cut out for him. I don't know that he can turn the defense around. I've had people tell me that what they're really looking for with him is just a better effort, something that won't be embarrassing, because right now they're trying to get out of the embarrassment of a team. But see, of a team that just let go of the rope. I do not buy this argument that they don't have the talent, because all I had to do was sit there and watch LSU come. Arkansas came closer to beating Ole Miss in Oxford than LSU did. LSU didn't have the ball at the end of the game. They had no chance to win. Arkansas did. So if you can play that well against a team now that's going to be right up there, I think Ole Miss may end up in the top 5. If you can do that, you've got talent. You cannot explain what happened in the next 2 weeks other than the fact that there are guys on that team that quit playing.
There's no question that a change had to be made defensively, and quite frankly, a change had to be made at the top. I can never remember, and I'm sure it's out there, this much turnover in the middle of a season for a coaching staff, and now you're literally pulling analysts out of the booth, potentially guys off the street. You worried about coaches maybe being worn a little bit thin here because guys are going to have to double up, take on more duties. That's a lot for what's turning into a kind of duct tape coaching staff.
I can just tell you that behind the scenes, what I've been told is that Petrino believes the problem more than anything else is a lack of motivation. And you don't have to do a bunch of fancy stuff here. You don't even have to worry about coaching as much as you've got to figure out a way to get these guys jump started again. Now the big issue is a bunch of them are upset. And they put up a bunch of emojis and different things on there.
Players speak through social media.
I don't think anybody's...
Cam Ball, Quincy Rhodes, that's what these guys were doing.
I don't think anybody's hit the portal yet. They have lost some recruits, some commitments. But you've got in January to bring people in through the portal to solve that issue. But I think right now, the way they feel they're going to improve the defense is to get more effort out of these guys.
Whenever you say simplify, this is just me kind of, processing that because I heard Pittman say it a lot. I heard Petrino say it again on Monday. Is that in any way offensive to these players? That, well, we got to dumb it down for you guys to excel.
I'm not sure how they take that, but
I could see how that could be offensive. What do you mean we can't handle it? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't. You'd have to talk to each one of them and be with them when they talk about this stuff. But again, one of the key issues is, what happens? How do you handle some of these starters that haven't been playing well? And somebody told me over there, bench them. I mean, put a second-team guy out there that has motivation.
Just lost by 43 points. How much worse can it get?
That's right. So those are some of the ways they think they can improve the defense.
All right, next question here this week coming from Just Win, who says, I can't wait for Petrino to explain why his offense has been going downhill. Now, in fairness, the Notre Dame game was the first game they scored fewer than 31 points. Exceptional against Ole Miss and Memphis in the first half, but the second half of both those games kind of average at best.
I don't think he ever addressed that directly. He did admit that the offense has to improve too, and he sort of suggested that by coming down from the booth and being on the sidelines and being able to look at these, not just his quarterback, but all the other offensive, maybe the offensive line, being able to go over there and address them, look them in the face, and do the Bobby Petrino motivation, which was, we know what that is how he's going to improve the offense. That he reached a point where, no, he didn't need to be up there. He needed to be down and talking to the guys that are making the mistakes and dealing with them that way. So I think that's how he plans to improve the offense, just by being down on the field.
Do you have any concerns with the idea that people think that Bobby is what he used to be? I make this analogy like anytime there's a baseball trade and, we're trading for Ken Griffey Jr. Yeah, but you're not getting 28-year-old prime Ken Griffey Jr. You're getting 38-year-old Ken Griffey Jr. Well, Bobby Petrino's last year at Missouri State was 5-6.
I mean,
Texas A&M, all that talent, didn't really do anything offensively.
Well, I mean, you mentioned it, the way his record has dropped off since Louisville the second time, after, he loses his great Heisman quarterback guy. It doesn't mean that's permanent. There could be reasons why that happened. He could have been thinking all along, if he really did want this job badly enough, maybe you could think to yourself, now he's going to turn it on. Now he's going to be, honestly, we'll be looking for signs of that. Now, the problem is none of us are over there at practice.
Yeah.
But if I were at practice, that's what I'd be looking for, because in the old days, you could watch his practices, some of them, not all of them. And we'd see what he did. And I still remember the day that he kicked a guy out of practice, a starter, and somebody used their cell phone to show it happening. And that was the end of that. We weren't coming to practice anymore. He didn't want us reporting that, but he got pretty mean and nasty with those guys at times, and I think he'll probably do it again.
Florida hats, bad idea to be wearing a Florida hat whenever you show up to a press conference. If you remember that story,
I do remember that
in 2010.
Yeah.
All right, one more point that I wanted to make here. So Bobby Petrino coaching up in the booth. This is a hot take, just me speculating. So I'm just throwing this out there. I want to get your reaction. Maybe if you were told anything. Was him moving to the booth in any way a little bit of a disconnect from Sam Pittman to say, you know what, I don't want to be down there. I don't want to be connected to this.
It's hard to say. I mean, there are actually people suggesting now on you can suggest whatever you want on Facebook or Twitter, but there were not anybody responsible, just fans suggesting that he probably tanked the last 2 weeks just to get Pittman fired. I don't believe that. But whether or not going up there had anything to, and then here's the other part that runs through my mind. What Pittman always looked like he wasn't doing much down there, but we don't know exactly what. And was he doing something that impeded the offense in any way? Did he have anything to do with Braylon Russell not playing at various times? He seemed to be a pro Russell, so I wouldn't think so. But you know, maybe there were some things going on down there on the sidelines with Pittman where he was restricting Petrino a little bit. We'll see.
Yeah, I think the Braylon Russell thing was more like, a couple missed assignments there. Yeah. If anything, I would assume that was Petrino's an old school guy. Hey, you fumble the ball, you miss blocks. What happens? We put you on the bench. So my idea there would be that was probably a Bobby Petrino thing. All right. Next question here coming from Sherlock Hogg, who wants to know, do you think we will get the 2010 Bobby fire and fight, or does he still have that fire that the Razorbacks need? We're kind of talking about that a little bit. People think that, well, hey, last time we were good, Bobby was here, just hire Bobby, well, hands clean, we're all going to be better again. Doesn't always work that way. I'm from Pittsburgh. Johnny Majors, legend at Tennessee. He was at Pitt before he went to Tennessee, did great things in Tennessee. He came back to Pitt in the 90s. Total disaster. He had lost his fastball.
Yeah. There's been a lot of debate on Facebook especially about whether or not that's even a good thing. There are 2 or 3 people out there that have consistently posted on something I put up about this story about how he always wanted to get back here. And talking about, look, I had a friend that was at Arkansas when Petrino was here, and he did this to him, he did that to him. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story about a guy I knew really well on that team. And he got injured, came back on the Monday after an injury after a Saturday game, and he was not at practice. So Petrino sent somebody in the training room to find out where he was and told him to get down there. What are you doing? Dressed him up and down about why are you not out here? And he said, look, I've got a horrible pain in my right leg. They haven't decided what it is yet. And he said, well, you need to get out here. And he called him a name, and the trainer had to intervene and say, we haven't cleared him to come out there. So Petrino couldn't do anything. He was mad about it. Well, a day or two later, they did an MRI and found out that he had a ruptured Achilles tendon. Yeah. Well, you can't play with that. You have to have surgery. So the particular athlete said he couldn't wait to encounter Petrino in the hallway and ask him about that. So he said, I see him coming down the hallway, and I said, well, hey, Coach, what do you think now? And he said, I still think you're a blank, and called him a name again. In other words, I'm not backing down. I don't care what kind of injury you have.
I may be wrong, but I'm not going to admit I'm wrong.
Yeah. And so that will give you an idea. And DJ Williams, who we worked with a lot, he totally admitted to me, I didn't like him when he got here. He was a total contrast from Houston Nutt. But by the time I left, I realized he made me a better player. That's just coaching. And some people understand coaching, and in this modern day where everything's kind of backing off a little bit, you can't do this, you can't do that. Some of the stuff that used to go on in football, I promise you, stories I've heard about when Frank Broyles was first here in the late 50s, early 60s, you couldn't do some of those things today. Coaching is constantly changing. Yeah. But has it changed so much that Petrino can't be the old Petrino anymore? I don't know.
All right, Mike Irwin, Ask Mike, a whole lot to get to, certainly just getting into this coaching search thing. Mike going to be talking about some big-time names out there. John Gruden brought up a lot. John Summerall down at Tulane. Dan Mullen, currently at UNLV. Former Arkansas assistant Barry Odom. All that coming up next. Don't go away. Yeah. Back here with Mike Irwin on this week's Ask Mike, and diving right into the Arkansas coaching search with Sam Pittman, now fired, Bobby Petrino, running the team, at least in the interim. Next question here coming from Pig in Paradise, who asks, who do you think the Hogs hire? You've seen this a few times. Yes, he has. Any stories from previous coaching searches, Mike?
Okay. Again, the name I hear the most is Rhett Lashlee.
It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, because of all the ties and all that stuff. Now, I saw somebody on Twitter today comparing the situation to the same as Gus, when Gus used Arkansas to get a big raise and then stayed at Auburn. He said, Lashlee's doing the same thing right now. He's just trying to get more money. That's not true, I promise you. Gus actually, through his wife, floated a rumor that he might come back, but his agent told whoever he was dealing with at Arkansas, and the AD had been fired at that time. Well, he was about to be fired. you got to fire Jeff Long because Gus won't work for Jeff Long. So they fired Jeff Long. That's how bad they wanted him. And then they negotiated with him and got him a 7-year, $49 million contract, which his agent used to get him the same thing at Auburn, and he stayed. I'm told that any interest right now on the part of any interest in Rhett Lashlee is Arkansas's interest, not his. He hasn't done anything to float any rumors that he wants to be here. He hasn't said anything, my agent will tell you what you have to do to get me, anything. They've had some contact with his agent. He hasn't indicated anything at that point that he would come here. I'm not saying they can't get him. There are people that believe that there's a very powerful booster that's willing to put up as much as $8-9 million to get him to come here. And maybe that would do the trick. But the word is he likes living in Dallas. His family, his wife.
I've heard the same thing. Yeah. He will listen.
Right.
His kids are in school.
Yes.
They love the community. He likes his job. He's comfortable. Why mess up a good thing?
And his wife is from here.
But that doesn't mean that he wouldn't listen to a big pile of money.
And she likes Dallas. Why wouldn't you? I mean, Dallas is not a bad place. If you've got money, if you're the head coach at SMU, would you? And what part of Dallas is SMU in? Probably the old money part of
Highland Park.
It's
area,
the old
where
money
like
part.
Jerry Jones lives.
Yeah,
stuff like
it is the old money part, but it's awesome. You know, I've been through there many times, so I can see why they'd want to stay there. I mean, I can't say so what he would do, but that's the name that gets mentioned a lot.
And if it's really about money, let's be honest. Arkansas can't compete with SMU.
No.
If SMU wants to pay him over $10 million a year, they can do it.
The other name you hear is Petrino. I mean, I'm told over and over again that he doesn't have to win out or do anything crazy. If there's enough people that support him right now that they think he could get this job just by showing a big contrast to what's happening. I don't know that myself, but that's what I've heard. But I think he's a player in this.
I'll add this about Petrino, though. If they improve, though, and they only win 2 games, that's a hard sell that we're promoting the guy that went to.
Yeah, I don't know.
Optics. That doesn't mean he's not the right man for the job, but the optics there would not be
I think he's going to have to pull off some upsets, but maybe not a bunch. I don't know that he has to get to a bowl game.
I think the minimum is 3 wins.
Yeah.
That's just an idea.
Okay, then let's talk about Mullen, because this is a touchy subject. The UNLV fans are just furious over this.
The ink's barely dry on his contract. He just got there a couple months ago.
And I'm told that he was very careful about that and didn't like the fact that this got out, and he's going to deny it. But that he wants to get back into the SEC, and he feels like Arkansas is a very similar school to Mississippi State when he built them back up. And then he went on to Florida, and he was doing pretty good at Florida. He had one bad season, got into it with some boosters, and they fired him. And Florida fans, most of them would take him back in a heartbeat because they say they were never the same after he got fired. So you've got that. Gruden, that's a new name that keeps popping up.
Oh, that's when I was here in 2012, he was talked about.
It's a new name popping up in serious terms. It's always been kind of a joke, you know. But
the issue with John's going to be some PR things the university's going to have to be okay with.
That's right. They're going to have to deal with some of the things that happened with him. But you've already got indications they're willing to deal with some of the stuff Petrino did, which is worse.
Yeah, and he did that in your own living room.
That's right.
He did that while he was on the job here.
I can't see any of that stuff being, you know, you could just say, look, that was years ago. I mended the error of my ways. I'm not that way anymore. I'm just saying that there are some people that are really pushing for him behind the scenes, and they've got money too. So at one time I considered that a joke. I don't anymore. I'm not saying it will happen, but that name is something you ought to look at.
Barry Odom's the other one.
And Barry Odom, you know, again, I think Odom's going to have to pull off some upsets. He's going to have to look better than he does right now. And he's in a tough conference, the Big Ten, but if he pulls off 2 or 3 upsets and he's improved the program a great deal, he might be.
Yeah, and I'd be interested in his contract. He just got there.
That's
so
right.
Usually the earlier you are, the higher the buyout is in your contract. It's not as – whereas guys like John Gruden, maybe a Cliff Kingsbury in the NFL, people that currently don't have a job, you're not paying to bring them here in addition to what their salary would be.
And then there are some names like Jeff Traylor, for instance, at Texas San Antonio. He was the running backs coach here. And I think he might have been an offensive coordinator. I can't remember. It's hard to remember exactly what those duties were. But he's done very well there over a period of time. You might hire him and get Barry Lenny Jr. to come back here as the OC because he worked as the OC under him.
I think he was the OC
before he went to Illinois with Brett Bielema. So Lunny might come back here if you hired Jeff Traylor. Then you'd have a connection. Lunny's big deal is this, because he said it, and all people did not understand how close he came to getting the job instead of Pittman. Even though he was the interim for just 2 games, the team definitely improved in those 2 games. They looked a lot better.
Yeah.
And Hunter Yurachek said at the time that he thought it was just a courtesy interview because they didn't win any of those 2 games
LSU, Missouri.
So what are you going to do? And he said it was a courtesy interview, but he said he walked into that thing and he was astounded at how well prepared Lenny Jr. was. He named every assistant coach he would hire. He had a recruiting plan, and he also had this plan where he said, every one of our walk-ons are going to be from Arkansas. If we're taking anybody that even looks like they might be able to help us down the road as a walk-on, because he said you've got to get Arkansas kids back involved in that program.
Build up the equity with the high schools.
That's
et cetera,
right.
Yeah.
So if Lunny were to come back, he'd still have that attitude. And I'm sure, if it's under Petrino or Traylor or anybody like that, they would like that. But under Traylor, I think he would go along with that. So, Jeff Traylor is a name. I guess you could come up with others. Dal Loggins, who's just getting started at App State. I think he's a guy that may be 10 years down the road, but he's very aggressive and told me to my face. It's like Petrino. He said, I'm going to be the head coach at Arkansas someday. He was a player when Matt Jones was here. Okay, they used to have these summer workouts in which coaches could not even watch. That was an NCAA rule. What they would basically do is go out there and do 7-on-7s. The football team would divide up first team offense against first team defense. They'd go 7-on-7. So you have no coaches out there. Loggins would be over there calling the plays, sending the plays in to Matt Jones. Mm-hmm. And he could do that legally because he was a player. He wasn't a coach. That's how much they respected him. So Houston Nutt would tell him what to do. He would then do it. Then he would come back and report to Nutt what happened over there. And so Nutt knew anyway. And there's nothing illegal about that because it was a player. That's how much they trusted him. And I think I wouldn't rule that out somewhere down the road. He's a smart guy. I don't know. We could sit here all day long and come up with names, but and what's hilarious is when you start, we're going to get some more questions on names, but what about Dion? You hear that. You hear all kinds of things.
It'd be very expensive. He seems to have some loyalty to Colorado, but who knows? They interviewed him the last time they had an opening for a head coach. All right, next question here coming from DeWitt Razorback, who says, I haven't heard anyone mentioning Barry Odom. I always felt like he would get a shot at the job if he wanted it. There's also a good chance he would be willing to keep Bobby P. on as offensive coordinator. We did mention Barry Odom's name here previously. Another thing, Bobby is not going to be here if he is not the head coach. That's just not how that works.
Yeah, probably not. The reason that's mentioned is because when Odom first went to UNLV, he hired Petrino away from, I think it was Missouri State, hired him away as the offensive coordinator.
A&M.
I believe, no, he went to A&M.
Oh, see, you could be right. I thought it was Missouri State to UNLV, then from UNLV to A&M.
That's right. That's what happened. He hired him away from, and he was on the job for about a week, and then A&M offered him, so he dumped him and went up there.
Probably not a good look.
I wouldn't think, that Barry Odom would have warm and fuzzy feelings about that situation. So, but a lot of people have assumed that.
All right, next question here coming from Kaz, who says, please tell me you are not hearing Dion's name being thrown around on the Hill by actual people in charge. I do not want the circus in town. He can't coach. You know what? Maybe he can't coach, but I'll tell you what. Dion gets results. He really turned around Colorado fast. He won at Jackson State, a place that really nobody's ever won at. They had the Heisman winner a year ago. I think they had double-digit wins. So maybe you don't like his act, but look, the guy gets results.
I think the controversy he had was having his own players on the team. That's not a good thing sometimes.
You mean his kids?
Yeah. I'm sorry, not his own players, his own kids on the team. That's not a good look sometimes. And I don't think it helped him any. But without that, maybe he'd be perfectly fine. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't think he's going to be the guy, but
I think it would cost you $10 million a year. I'm not sure Arkansas, aside from maybe Rhett Lashlee, is going to come up with that kind of money. All right, next question here coming from Marty Bird's Proxy, who says, I was all in for Sam, and like many really wish it had unfolded differently. Is there any event or situation where you can point to and say, hey, that's where it started to unravel? Mike, I'll tell you where I think it was. It was whenever that ball was on the ground at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I think if that didn't happen, you're 4-1 right now.
Yeah, I think it started to unravel way before that. Keep in mind that he won 9 games in 2021.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next season.
7-6.
They started off the season 4-0. They were playing A&M in Jerry World, and it was the first half, and they were up 14-0, and they were inside the red zone, and they were about to score and go up 21-0. They were going to win that game. They were going to be 5-0. Are you kidding me? This team was going to win 9 or 10 games again. And K.J. Jefferson tried to jump into the pile, the ball was knocked loose. They picked it up, ran it back in. So instead of 21-0, it's 14-7. Arkansas lost, I think, 24-21, something like that. And that team ended up with a 7-6 record, and they never won more than 7 games. It went slowly downhill from that point.
All right, Mike Irwin. So a whole lot more to get to in the fallout of the Sam Pittman firing. Bobby Petrino now in charge. More with Ask Mike coming up next. Back here with Mike Irwin on a special edition of Ask Mike. One day late, that in the wake of the firing of Sam Pittman and the hiring of Bobby Petrino. Diving right back into it here. Next question coming from Fat, who asks, what will it take to at least look like a competitive team? Can we ever be a powerhouse again? I am 67 and miss Arkansas football from the 70s era. Mike, it feels like people are just desperate to win 8-9 games. Yeah. Forget about being a power team.
Okay, competitive team, I'm telling you, all you have to do is play harder. They've got the players right now. If they will go out there and really put effort into this, they can be competitive.
You can't just tap somebody on the head and say, go play harder.
Yeah.
How are they going to get that message through?
I don't know, but that can happen this year. Now, be a powerhouse. Here's the one, and I can't say this is going to happen, but the one way it could happen is if revenue sharing is not a bunch of baloney. If they're actually going to sit and enforce that and take the big NIL money away, where you can stop buying players with multi-million-dollar NIL deals. And then everybody's working out of a $20.5 million, and that's going to go up as time goes by. But if everybody's in the same boat financially, then here's what you're back to. You're back to saying, hey, come on up here to Fayetteville, you'll like it.
Beautiful.
I don't know how many people I've talked to, players, that said, I'd never been to Arkansas. I thought it was like hillbilly stuff. And I landed at that airport, and I got out on that little road, and I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to be ambushed, and this is terrible. And then we got into the interstate and drove over to the campus, and I'm going, this is awesome. It's a great place to live. Why do I feel qualified to say that? Because I'm one of those people. I'd never been here. Yeah. When I took the job, and I was hired by a station in Fort Smith, and they had a small bureau up here. Mm-hmm. They didn't like the people in the bureau. They thought it was terrible. They wanted to get rid, the people in the newsroom wanted to get rid of the bureau. So I get the job, but the news director says to me, hey, before you go back to Texas and get all your stuff and move up here, you need to go up there and look at where you're going to be working. I went, well, okay. And I drove up the old 71, went through those mountains, got up here, and I went, what are you talking about? It's a great place. And within 6 months on the job, I was sold, and I was pretty sure I wasn't leaving. I love it up here. I don't want to live anywhere else. You could not name a place. You couldn't tell me, hey, we'll move you to Hawaii. We'll move you to England.
Southern California, whatever.
Yeah, Florida. No, I'll stay right here. My kids live here. All my grandkids. I mean, my wife and I've lived here for 46 years. Come on.
Mike, I'm getting tones of a point you made here a little bit ago. The fan base is getting kind of sick and tired of the whole money being an excuse thing, and people demanding that there's changes to the sport. The fans are interpreting that as an excuse, and they want the school to find the money and figure it out.
Well, some do, absolutely, but others realize that if you start playing that game, you better have it, because you're going to have to keep doing it, and then you're going to get to this issue where, hey, if you're buying all these players with big money, then they could just lay down on you. Now, I can't tell you how I know this, but we'd gotten a couple of questions on Ask Mike about this Madden Iamaleava.
Madden Iamaleava, Nico Iamaleava,
right.
the older brother, currently the starting quarterback.
He got the big NIL deal, and then he ran out and took a bunch of money with him, and Arkansas sued him to get it back. And I've never been able to get an answer over at the athletic department about how that's going. I was told that it's going really well, and they feel like that's going to end up being a landmark case in this whole deal of you're going to force athletes. They will know you can't run out on this deal.
It's not just extortion. Hey, I need more money. Sorry, tough. You signed the deal.
Yeah, you're going to have to, if you leave, you're going to have to pay it back if you don't stay to the terms of the contract. So I think that we're going to have to come up with an answer to all this one way or another. Either the big bucks goes away and I'd be perfectly fine with spreading this out evenly, and every kid on scholarship on a football team gets $40,000 a year in addition to these $50,000 or $60,000 scholarship. Because now you're up over $100,000.
It sounds great, but I just think too much toothpaste is out of the tube.
Well, maybe.
It's going to be hard for the kids to take that.
Maybe, but I would love to see that because it would equalize things. Look at the problems it's created when you're next to me and you get 60,000 and I get 30. I'm mad at you.
And especially if I'm out before you're on the bench, you're getting this money, and I'm playing. I'm out there getting hit, putting my life on the line.
It's just not good. So I think they've got to figure something out. I don't know what the ultimate solution is, but what I'm saying to you is turning around big. Arkansas's either got to pour big money into the program and play the game with the big boys, or this has to all go away and it goes back to revenue sharing. One way or the other, that's the way you get back to Arkansas of the 60s. Frank Broyles, in the 1960s, Arkansas was number 3 in the country in terms of total wins. In the 60s, they only had one bad year in the whole decade. Late 70s into the early 80s, the program was solid.
In 1977, finished 3rd in the nation under Lou Holtz.
Yeah. So it was there. What do you have to do to get back there? If you've done it once before, you can do it again, but you have to look at what was going on back there, and Arkansas was considered, you had the right coaches. That's the other part of this, and I would say this without question. People say, how quickly can you turn a program around? Look at Mississippi State. Compare them this year to last year. Look at what Vanderbilt's doing right now. If you hire the right coach, you can turn things around, and it doesn't take 8 years. So that's the other.
And Juracek made that point at the press conference Monday. He said, with the transfer portal now, we can get this fixed right away with the right coach.
That's right. So that's the ultimate answer right now. How do you do that? You hire the right coach, and he starts building it up. Might take 2 or 3 years to get up there in the upper level of the SEC. But if the coach is good enough, and Petrino did it, people forget
one little kind of blip year there.
Well, the first year he was
7-5, won a bowl game year 2.
He was 5-7, I believe. The
first year. I think the second year 7-5 won the bowl game, Liberty Bowl.
Yeah.
And a third year 10-win season.
Yeah, I mean he won 3 straight. Well, he won two of 3 bowl games. Should have won the Sugar Bowl. They blew it because the guy didn't do a scoop and score. I mean, he tried to just
block punt. Yeah.
Tried to do the scoop and score. He should have just fell on it and would have won the game. But Petrino turned this thing around really fast. And can he do that again? We've discussed that. I don't know.
Yeah, and back then, quite frankly, different landscape, but they found the money. They found the money for Petrino. They found the money for the new football complex. They found the money for the $150 million end zone. So different times in paying players, but they've proven they can find it when they have to have it. Next question here comes from Lil Weezy. All right, shout out Lil Wayne. With the pressure on schools to retain money for NIL, do you believe we will see changes to coaches' contracts that avoid large buyouts, or will schools hold on to coaches longer than in the past to not pay those buyouts?
I think we're going to continue to have this issue, and here's why. You can say all you want, you're not going to do it. But if there's a coach you really want, and you're convinced he's the guy you have to have, what do you think his agent is going to do?
Pay.
He's not going to back off and say, no, he doesn't need a buyout.
You're not getting him at a discount, yeah.
So this is going to continue to be an issue. And where it really hurts the most, this is the number one, agents for players, this is the number one thing they use to fuel that. They're saying, look at this coach. He's getting $9 million a year, and you've just given an athlete a little $50,000 a year scholarship. So it's those high-dollar coaching salaries that have caused a lot of this to happen.
In the NFL, the players make more than the coaches.
I know.
Maybe that day could happen in college football.
Well, I don't know that'll happen. Maybe more than just some of the coaches. Yeah. So, I don't think that's going to change. I think you're going to still see the big buyouts.
I don't think you'll ever see what Texas A&M did, and I don't care what the school.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll ever see a $70 million buyout.
Yeah, I think they'll avoid that. I think because even A&M has admitted we're struggling to pay that off.
But if Arkansas wants Rhett Lashlee, if it is John Gruden, enter big name here, Don't you? It's got to be a fully guaranteed contract.
Exactly.
You know, it's 6 years, $60 million, something like that.
Yeah. So it's a question of how big would it be, and I'm a little skeptical that Arkansas would commit to something like that. But some people say the right people are willing to do that to get him. I don't know it.
And have to wait and see. There's always an element of surprise too. When they hired Bobby Petrino in 2008 or 2007, nobody saw that coming. When they hired Brett Bielema, nobody brought up that name. Chad Morris, when they struck out on Gus Malzahn, people did that. They connected the dots. That made sense. Sam Pittman, nobody really considered Pittman a candidate for the job until he got the job.
Yeah, well, it's because
they got turned down.
He was one of the few that wanted it. Hopefully that won't happen this time.
All right, next question here from Pigs Feed, who asks, can you explain Coach Pittman's contract buyout details? I can explain it. They got a little bit of a deal. That's about it. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, he was set to get $9.3 million. They've said that if they let him finish out the year and Arkansas lost all their games, it would drop quite a bit. I think by 3 or 4 million. What ended up happening was, Hunter Yurachek went to him after he told him that he was gone, and he said he went over to his house, and they just sat around the kitchen table. I think he basically said, and I don't know if Pittman suggested this, but there was a clause in his contract that said, if we give you this $9.3 million, you have to go out and actively seek another job.
As is pretty standard for any coach, correct?
And I think he got out of that by saying, hey, I'll take a little bit less. So they saved about $1.5 million by doing that negotiation. And that's not insignificant. If you'll remember, Brett Bielema had that in his contract, and what did he do when he got fired? He was a volunteer assistant.
I was there with him.
The Patriots? Yeah. Was that right?
He manipulated. I don't know exactly what the language was, but say like the offset language was anything over $100,000. We, again, just making these numbers up. Anything over $100,000, we will then deduct that from your buyout. So he manipulated it, trying to, kind of put the knife to Arkansas a little bit, and made sure that the Patriots were paying right to that threshold.
Right.
So if it was 100, they were paying 99.
Right. And so what ended up happening after a few years of that was Arkansas sued him. They stopped paying him altogether.
And they were right to. That was not good faith employment seeking.
Yeah. So they just cut him off completely and said, we're not paying you anymore. You've broken the contract from the very beginning. He then came back and countersued, and they settled in court. I don't know what they ended up doing. I think they all kind of met in the middle. But that's not insignificant, the whole part about having to seek employment. And with somebody like Sam Pittman, who's 65, 60?
He's done. He's ready for the lake.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see him go. Somebody has suggested that he go back to Auburn. I guess Auburn's got an offensive line problem. You solve that problem, he'll go to Auburn. I don't see him doing that.
Yeah.
Why would he want to?
I'm with. If he wants to work, he will work again. But I think he's done. And quite frankly, I think he will remain in the state. And I do think there will be a time when he comes back. He'll wave to the crowd, and he'll get a nice ovation.
I have been told that he's put his house for sale up here. I thought he might.
The one in Fayetteville.
Yes, I thought he might keep it just so he could go back and forth. But
how about the one in Hot Springs? I think that's the spot, right?
Yeah, that I don't know about. I just know the one up here is for sale.
All right, Mike Irwin, we're going to take a break here on Ask Mike. More to come right after a quick timeout. Back here again with Mike Irwin, this week's Ask Mike, and diving right back into it. Red Dog Razorback says the more Hunter Yurachek talks, the deeper he digs the hole. He told the Board of Trustees the naming rights for DWR is worth $4 to $5 million per year. Does this mean the U of A lost $4 to $5 million? And maybe not necessarily, because the athletic department didn't sign someone for this year. The boondoggle with the basketball seating, his comments at the LR Touchdown Club, and now this, he is walking a public relations mess.
There are people that say that. Now, look, everything they've done lately, the board, all of that stuff, what he said at the press conference supposedly counteracts that. There are people over at the U of A right now that are disputing that he won't hire the next coach. They say he will. What I have people telling me is that may well be the case, but he's of use to the board right now, and the board and the boosters that are involved with the board, that they all know all this stuff, that they don't feel comfortable with him running the program long term, and that he won't be here long term. But that could be wrong. This is just people talking. When you use sources, you can trust them, but things can change too. I've had sources tell me, look, when I told you this, it was accurate. It changed.
Things change.
And I didn't give you incorrect information. So maybe they could change their opinion about him. I don't know. But what I've had people tell me now that are in position to know is that he's useful to them right now. They didn't want to fire Pittman. They wanted him to do it. They didn't felt like they didn't want Petrino making these assistant coaches changes. He recommended it, but Juracek made it happen. And therefore, if you're going to hire another coach, you got to have an AD do it. You can't have, the board and the chancellor of the university doing this. It's like, who's really doing this? Yeah. When an AD hires a coach, you know who that is. When it's a board of trustees and a bunch of boosters, who are these people? So they like this right now, the way they're doing it. But again, that could be wrong.
Next question here coming from PG Hog 1, who wants to know, why hasn't HY or someone in the athletic department thought about hiring someone as an NIL fundraiser? That baffles me. He hasn't done that like other schools have. Everybody brings up for this kind of job, like an ambassador to the program. Houston Nut.
Here's the thing, though. They did have, first of all, an NIL fundraiser can't be a part of the school. That's the whole thing about NIL.
Through the collectives.
It's done through the collectives, and they had a collective. It just wasn't any good. And they did have people running it, and they did have people raising money. They just didn't raise much money as some of these, compared to Ole Miss, for instance. The complaint that I always heard about Arkansas's Edge program with regard to these grassroots NIL is that they set a goal of, hey, you can give us anywhere from $50 to $150 to $300, whereas Ole Miss said, we'll take $1, we'll take $5, we'll take 10. And they said, people I've talked to said Arkansas should have had that approach. Also, this is something a lot of people don't know. You've got Learfield Communications, which is companies like Learfield, and they do this with several schools. They partner with a university, and then they farm out some of their stuff. Their coaches shows.
Correct.
The money from the coaches shows that go to the coaches, Learfield sells it, and they market it to television stations. So the University of Arkansas says, okay, Learfield, do this for us, do this, and this is it, and we'll come up with a fee where we go back and forth. We'll pay you this much, and then you do this for us. I'm told that Learfield does arrange for NIL deals for athletes. They will go out and find them. So they do have somebody that does that. And then again, we get back to what we said before. How long does NIL remain a big deal? Officially, it can't. Because unless there's some lawsuit that wins and they throw it all out, based on the court settlement with the House of Representatives, the House court settlement, NILs are going to be greatly reduced by Deloitte, a company that's been hired to come in and do that. And the idea is, once again, pay for play is the revenue sharing. We're not making any bones about this. We're paying you this amount of money to play for us. NIL is not pay for play. It's to you get money for a company gives you money for you to endorse their product.
Cox Cable wants you on their commercials, right. Nike, things like that. It's not just
totally separate thing.
We're going to give you $500,000 to be the backup quarterback.
Yeah. Deloitte supposedly coming to step in and say no to that. Yeah. Will that happen? I don't know.
All right, next question here coming from WV Hog fan who asks, how would you like this combination? Kendall Traynor is AD,
Kevin's
Jimbo
brother.
Fisher. Kevin Traynor, that's his
No, it's Kendall, but it's his brother.
Kendall Traynor is AD and Jimbo Fisher as football coach. Man,
well, it's not a matter of what I would like because nobody's going to ask me, but that's not going to happen.
Speaking of somebody that doesn't need the money, $75 million to go away, I think he's going to have a hard time getting another job.
Yeah. Jimbo Fisher, that's not going to happen here, and Kendall Traynor is not going to be the AD. He's a great field goal kicker, but I don't think he's going to be the
AD. So this is a relation to Kevin Traynor?
He's his older brother.
And he's doing what now, Kendall?
I'm not sure what he's doing. He was a kicker here, a good field goal kicker. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Kevin what he's up to right now, but I don't think he would be the AD.
Maybe more likely Kevin will be the AD.
His brother would be more likely the AD than he would be.
All right, next question here coming from Smashmouth 2004 says, Juracek indicated per you that NIL enforcement will increase, but no timeline. Until that happens, why aren't we jumping in and competing for these players like everyone else?
Yeah.
Look, Mike, this has happened already. Teams are going all in. This is the final year of the Wild Wild West. We're pushing the chips to the table.
Okay, here's how that unfolded. Brandon Marcello went up and talked to Juracek after the press conference was over. And I wanted to talk to him next, so I'm standing there. And this was, Juracek sort of indicated to Brandon Marcello that they don't, even though he had said we're going to have plenty of NIL money to get the right coach, he pretty much indicated that they don't. It was very confusing how he was going back and forth on this. And then when I talked to him, I said, I don't understand why NIL is such a big deal. According to that House settlement that we've talked about, it was supposed to be already reduced and virtually eliminated in terms of big money by July 1st. So what's going on? And that's when he said there's not enforcement right now. And he made that reference before where it's like you're out on the highway and the speed limit's 70, 65 and everybody's going 90 because
you know you can't get
because
caught.
there's no cops out there. And he said eventually it's going to get enforced. What I didn't ask him was when, and I should have now, because what's important is that if they're still not enforcing it by January when that NIL window opens, wait a minute here. Whoever this is, whether it's Petrino or somebody they bring in, they've lost enough freshman recruits in their recruiting class right now that if they don't start replacing them, they have to get transfers. So you got to bring people in through the transfer portal. If you decide, hey, everybody else is spending this NIL money, we'll just go ahead and do it too, maybe you can get away with it. But if they do that, they're not going to admit it.
All right, final question. You're up against it a little bit in terms of time. Go from go get your shine in the box. Is that what it is? Whatever. That's a great name. That's a Ouija board to come up with something like that. Is this the most important hire the athletic department has ever had to make? I feel like they can't screw this up, or we're buried for the next 10 to 15 years. You got to get it right. You don't get it right, it's Chad Morris, it's Sam Pittman.
Yeah, I don't know that it's a 30-year deal or something like that. It could cause this to go way on down the road. But I will go back to what I said before. Even if you hire the wrong guy here this time, if in 2 years or 3 years you hire the right guy, there's always the right guy. The question is, when are you going to hire him? Yeah. And I would say, yes, they need to do it right now. But if they don't, do it again. Every time you have the opportunity, make sure this time you do it. And they've missed several times. So stop missing. Stop hiring the wrong guy.
All right, Mike Irwin breaking down the latest from the Arkansas coaching search, all the fallout from the firing of Sam Pittman. Have to wait and see what lies ahead. Arkansas off this week. It'll be at Tennessee in Knoxville. The reincarnation of the Bobby Petrino era coming up on October 11th. Thank you for joining us.